Assalamu alaikum. Last time we finished with ayah number 276 of Surah Al-Baqarah, and today as we stand we have 10 more ayahs to finish the whole surah. So I want to congratulate you for your patience, your persistence. I'm very much hopeful that everything has been recorded. But if there are parts that we have not recorded, I need to know what parts so that we can go ahead and complete the whole thing. So somebody needs to look in the previous records to see where we are so that we can cover the few ayah that we might have not been able to record in the past. Inshallah. So ayah number 277, it continues to talk about money issues. As you remember, last time the discussion was about riba, usury, interest. And here the ayah goes on to say, those who believed and did righteous deeds and established prayer and gave their due zakah, they have the reward with their Lord, and they have no fear upon them, nor shall they grieve. As we explained before, the two words used quite frequently in the Quran are fear and grief. Fear and grief. And the way to secure our life from fear is to trust Allah, to trust our faith, and to strengthen our relationship with Allah so that we fully rely on Him without hesitation. We are not afraid to trust Allah with everything. That takes care of our fears. Whether you are afraid for something or afraid of something or someone, trust Allah. Also in our faith, we know that nothing happens to us except that which Allah allows to happen. So everything in reality is controlled by Allah, and as a result, when we trust Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes care of us. In the hadith of the Prophet, peace be upon him, he said, nobody will ever benefit you except with the thing that Allah would allow. Nobody would ever hurt you with anything except with the thing that Allah allows. Even if all the jinn and the humans got together to help you or hurt you, they would never be able to do anything except what Allah wills. It's all up to His will. Our belief in that should allow no fear of anything or anyone other than Allah. We only fear Allah, and we fear nothing and no one else. So, لا خوف عليهم, there is no fear upon them, and they shall not grieve. Meaning, whatever we lose, whatever we miss, it should not bring us grief that can cripple our life. Grief is a normal feeling. When you miss someone dear and near, of course we grieve. and we become a bit sad. But this grief should never be gripping to handicap us from going on with normal life, usual life practice of everything. So we should never go into hunger strike because something happens to my son. So I'm not eating until my son recovers. There is no such a thing. Or I'm not eating until this and this happens. There is no hunger strike in objection to what Allah does for us or what we think He has done to us. Either way, we should accept His decree. You know what His decree is?
His order or
His qadar, yeah. His decree, whatever He decrees. Yeah. So those who believed and did righteous deeds and established prayer and gave zakah, they have the reward with Allah. And in that statement, Allah is telling us, seek your reward only from Allah. If you want to seek reward from people, you will be disappointed, including the closest people to you. No one can meet all of your expectations except Allah. No one can help you as Allah does. No one can hurt you or punish you more than Allah. So Allah is the only one that we should give our highest attention, our highest appreciation, our highest glorification, and our highest regard. All go to none but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then the reward comes from only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then the following ayah, ayah 278, all you who believe, fear Allah and protect yourself from Allah and leave whatever is left of usury. If you truly believe. If you believe in Allah, the ayah is saying, and this ayah came down as the ayah of prohibition, the ayah of prohibiting usury. And it was talking to a community that lived on usury. The rich, they have some money or resources, and they lend it out to make money. That's how they live. So Allah brought down this ayah to say, leave whatever usury you're asking of people, if you truly believe. And if you do not do, I want you to listen carefully to the following ayah, 279. If you do not do, then beware of a war from Allah and from His Messenger. So engaging in usury means that the person is provoking a war from Allah and from His Messenger. Who wants to fight with Allah? Who wants to think that he could fight with Allah, let alone win? So usury is regarded as a very major, ominous violation of our faith. Why is that? Allah, when it came to adultery, theft, even killing, He didn't say that wait for a war. He didn't declare war on those crimes. But on the crime of usury, He declares war. Why? because usury influences not only a society or a nation, it can and does travel and extend way beyond the borders of any community or society. If you were following the news in 2008 and 2009, in what is regarded as housing crisis and the financial crisis that followed, it influenced the whole world. The whole world financial markets, in plural, were all about to collapse. So, because of the massive destruction that usury can produce, Allah considered it a war against His guidance, and as such, He threatens by a war against people who engage in the usury practice. Then it says, but if you repent and desist, then you have your capital that you invested to take back. And the key statement here is that you are not wronged, nor should you wrong others. You are not wronged. So what does the ayah actually say? The ayah is saying to the companions of the Prophet who were actually engaged in usury, because it was still lawful until this ayah came down. The Quran is saying, if you gave a loan of $1,000, for example, and you requested the borrower to pay it back 1,100, then you only take back the 1,000 and leave the 100 out. Don't take it. Why? Because you will be wronging someone by doing this. And it tells people, do not give more money for borrowing money, because you would be wronging yourself. So whether you are receiving the usury or paying the usury, the Quran says, don't wrong yourself and don't wrong others. So both ways, one should be very careful. Definitely, the usury violation, it takes two sides to commit this violation. If I don't lend you money and make usury a condition, and if you don't accept my offer, none of us could commit the usury violation. So if it is only you who want to have riba, and I don't want to engage, you cannot have it. So this is a crime that takes two people to commit. On one side, the one who is borrowing money is wronging himself and wronging his family. And we know in reality that a house, for example, that costs about $150,000 or $200,000 is sold through the bank loan for $400,000 or $600,000 on a 30-year installment plan, right? That means 3 times as much as the sale price. And if we understand that the initial price, which is $200,000, is actually double the cost. So the house that actually costs the builder $100,000 is sold for $200,000 or more, right? But that's cash. Then when it goes to usury system and the bank the bank loan, then it is multiplied to $600,000 or even more. So this is as extreme and excessive as to turn poor people who want to have their homes into slaves and slave labor to pay off that kind of debt. And when the market changes, so the bank you borrowed money from doesn't want to wait for their money. So they sell your loan to a bigger bank. And the bigger bank sells it to a bigger bank. And all of this keeps piling more interest on your bank. So even the 600,000 will turn into 800,000. It breaks the back of the poor buyer, right? And that's why people went for foreclosure, many went for bankruptcy, many went for suicide, many homes were broken, many families were devastated and destroyed, and many people were left in the streets. So the crime of usury destroys an entire society, an entire community, an entire nation. Ayah number 280. And if the borrower has difficulty, now the question is going to deal with a poor person who borrows. So it says, if the borrower has a hard time paying back, then give him an extended allowance period. Give him a further notice. So if it is due in June, extend it to December, which means do not charge him more money for being late in payment unless he has the money and he doesn't want to pay. Then you can charge him penalty, but you cannot charge him usury. You cannot precondition usury. Okay? And then it goes on to say, and if you forgive the loan, it turns into a charity in your record. And it is better for you. It is in your best interest if you truly know. Meaning, if you give somebody a loan, let us say $100 or $1,000, and at the time that is due for him to pay, he comes and he says, I do not have enough money to pay you. Then you may forgive part of the loan and have him pay what he can. You may forgive the entire loan if you can, or you may extend the period, like telling him, why don't you pay me something monthly and tell me when can you do that, and extend a period for payment so that he can pay it all without interest, but he can pay it all. And whatever you do of this, it counts as a charity on your part. But definitely the most beneficial charity is to forgive the loan for a person who cannot actually pay it back. When we say he cannot or she cannot, we mean that they actually cannot. So if a person who borrowed the money is unemployed, then we understand that he cannot. If the person who borrowed the money is underpaid, like he cannot make ends meet for his own living, then we understand that he cannot pay the loan back. But he cannot be saving money and not paying the loan. He cannot be squandering money on unnecessary items and claim that I cannot pay the loan. So the borrower has to be honest, because Allah is a witness and Allah is engaged in guiding the whole process. He tells the lender what to do. He tells the borrower what to do. So this is not a process that one side or the other should manipulate as if Allah is not witnessing. Allah is watching and seeing and monitoring what is going on. Then ayah number 281, and fear a day and protect yourself from a day. When you go back to Allah, when you return back to Allah, and then every single soul will be given its full recompense for whatever they have earned, meaning of goodness or evil, and they will never be wronged. Here the reference is about the day of judgment. Fear the day of judgment, the day in which you return back to Allah. Fear the day when you die and you have no way to correct what you have done. And then you will be given your full recompense, your full reward or punishment for whatever you have done, and you will not be wronged. After that, we have 4 ayahs to finish. I think we have, because the ayah that comes, ayah number 282, is the longest ayah in the Quran. It takes 1 full page to explain, and it takes a lot of time because it has rules about borrowing money. It has rules about borrowing money, and it definitely completes the discussion about the money section and what to do when we borrow money. But the rules are simple and straightforward. I want to give you the chance, though, to ask any question related to riba, because that issue is so pervasive. It is so spread and it's so pervasive in the society that many of you may have questions. Also, because the audience who are going to watch this video, they might have questions similar to yours. So I want to give you a chance to speak for yourself or for someone else in terms of asking questions on the issue of usury before we go to the issue of debt. Can we do this, or do you want to move on?
I think I do have some questions that not to be brought up about the issue of riba or interest.
Okay, then we'll stop here and take questions.
Yes. So it's right now we're stopping at 282.
Yeah, keep the record. Yeah, keep the record for the questions.
Okay, she's going to go ahead and ask her a question. One person himself, he's a financial manager who's dealing with interest. He's Muslim and he fears about the interest issue. So, and she can't answer his question, but he does love what he's doing, his work as a financial manager. What is the advice to that person? should he quit that position that he loves, or relating to interest, or looking, what are the options that he can?
Well, financial management is a broad field. It has working with riba, it has working with investments. So my advice to a person who works in the usury side of financial management is to try to consider working in investment, okay, rather than working in borrowing money and collecting interest, which is usury. By the way, I want you to know that usury was prohibited in the United States because it is prohibited in the Old Testament. But then the Congress worked their way by the lobbying of financiers to allow it, by lobbying of banks and institutions to allow usury as a way of life. Likewise, alcohol and wine and whiskey and all of that was prohibited until 1934, when the wine industry started to lobby Congress, and they told them, listen, we are selling it, but secretly. The only thing is the nation is not collecting taxes on it. So why don't you make it legal and collect taxes? The same thing they are saying about marijuana, and God knows what comes next.
That's very true. Everything is based on taxes now. Everyone's trying to no free tax.
Everything is valued through the color of the green of the dollar. Everything, from politics to law to courts, everything. We are all worshiping the dollar sign.
I agree with you, definitely. People are saying that the money is devil's work. She also has a question about loan, Islamic loan and regular loan. They both have interest, but they follow the American law. So she's assuming that if you get the loan for a house or a car, but you pay extra to reduce the interest to pay off early, is that okay?
Well, in 1980, I used to live in Houston, Texas. And brothers and sisters used to come and ask me, we want to buy a car, but the only way to afford it is to pay interest. And I said, give me the formula, because I didn't know how it worked. So when they explained the formula to me, I suggested to them to ask the dealer to total everything in one lump sum price and divide it into equal installment on monthly basis, and to leave the interest as zero, and to leave everything as profit. So for example, the car is sold for $20,000. With interest, it goes to $25,000. Okay? So I told them, in this case, tell him, listen, I'm going to give you the 25, but don't phrase the $5,000 as interest, because in my faith, I cannot pay interest. It's usury and it is haram. It's prohibited. So dealers started to ask their financial companies, right? And their car automakers, customers are asking for this, what to do. Then later on in the mid-80s, they came up with the formula that's called zero finance. Zero finance is a legalized form of installment payment method, which is different from usury. In an installment, I have a car, I want to sell it for 10,000. You don't have the 10,000, right? I want to make money on it, so I want to sell it for $12,000. It's my car, it's worth 10,000, but I want to make some money on it. Let's say $11,000. Then you come and you said, you know what? I'm willing to pay you 10,000 now. What do you think? If I would collect my money, then I would say, okay, 10,000 now is better than 11,000 in 11 months. So I take the money, you take the car, it's finished. But if you want to pay on an installment, and I sell it to you for 12,000, dividing the 12,000 on 12 months, for example, or 24, whatever this is, but there is no contingency and there is no condition to increase it beyond the 12,000. But I am allowed to get the car back if you do not pay me the full amount on time. So both sides are obliged to meet each other's conditions, the seller and the buyer. This is defined in Islamic sale regulations as sale on installment. What is the difference between this and usury? Usury also is sale on installment. But the longer you have the loan, the more interest you pay. So it makes it more difficult to pay off your loan so long as you are on a usury system.
Okay, and if you pay the extra principal to pay it off early, is that fine?
You can always pay in the installment system, which is Islamic. You can always pay ahead of time.
So that way you don't have to pay the full interest. So she's saying if you do the interest system, if you always pay it extra and pay off early, is what she's saying. So if you, yeah, she's talking about the interest loan system.
Well, the change of the agreement will take the two sides to do this, unless you state in the agreement the condition of early payment waiver. So let us say, I want to sell you the car, and we agree, we have two proposals. Either you buy it on 12,000 for installment, 24 installments, $500 each, or you buy it all cash, 10,000. Then we said, okay, we'll do the 12,000 installment plan. Then you paid me the first 500 and you took the car. We signed the agreement. The agreement is bound for both sides. I cannot ask you for early payment. You cannot ask me for early waiver unless we renegotiate the deal. Unless we renegotiate the deal. It is very much Islamically encouraged that if after paying one installment or two, you were able to collect the money and pay off everything up to the 10,000, that I, as a seller, should waive the extra money and collect what I initially proposed on the table. But you cannot force me to do that, because I'm already committed with you in this deal, with somebody else in another deal, with somebody else another deal. So if I change every deal I do, this will open me up to losing the business and the business structure as I have it. But those $2,000
Right.
extra, those $2,000 extra are not riba, as if we have a percentage dictated in the contract from the beginning. Those are part of the total price. Many scholars refuse the formula that would say this is worth 10,000, but if you want it on an installment, I will give it to you for 12,000. And these are the conditions. They prefer that the offer is presented in the opposite, which is to say this car is for $12,000 on installment, but if you pay cash now, I can give it to you for 10,000. So the 10,000 is an incentive for cash, and the 2,000 are not a punishment for delayed or deferred payments.
Right. I don't think that answers her question. I think her question is if you are already in, for example, if you pay for something for $5,000, but you have to pay it off for 2 years, including interest, it would double the price, of course. Let's say 10,000, but if I pay and I add additional money for instead of 2 years of doing it in 1 year, instead of double the 20,000, she'll only pay 15,000 a year because she paid it off early. She paid extra per month. So this is if you are doing an interest system, not an Islamic installment plan. If she goes every month, instead of paying the minimum, she pays the excess amount of money to pay off her interest earlier. Would that be counted as? It's not the same as the initial, but it's less than the price.
Here's the issue. The concept of usury is meant for me to have cash on hand that I lend out and collect and make my living on what is extra. So I'm making my living on the usury. So without usury, I cannot make living. Islam wants us to invest the money, which means instead of piling cash in my bank account and lending it for usury, Islam wants me to invest, meaning to partner with you, help you open a small project, a small business, and we take risk and profit together and study the plan together and contribute to it. You do the effort and the management and I finance it, but I take risk with you. But in the case of usury, I take my money and the usury, and you take the risk and the loss. So it's all one-sided profit and one-sided liability. This is the problem with the usury system. But in the installment system, which is Islamic, nobody's taking the risk for anything, and everybody is dealing with each other fairly and squarely, and they know how much to pay, for how long, and how often. So it's a stable system. And there is something to sell in the middle. So I'm not buying money for money. I'm not buying your 10,000 for 15,000. But in the case of usury, I am buying the 100,000 for 600,000. It's way excessive. You see the difference?
Yes.
Okay. Any more questions about? No more questions? Okay, this will conclude this, and inshallah, next time we will be taking ayah number 282. And we will have only 4 ayahs to finish Surah Al-Baqarah, inshallah.